Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you're at. Welcome to the Power of Email. I'm Michelle Michaels. I lead the marketing team at Versium. Today, I will be joined by Chris Maddie, Versium's co-founder and CRO, along with Brian Minnick, COO at Zero Bounce. Good morning, guys. Thanks for joining me today. We want today to be as valuable as possible for you, so we hope you find this educational and also walk away with some tactical next steps for unlocking the full potential of email within your marketing programs. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar as they come up right in the Q&A section. Presentation itself will probably be around 30 to 40 minutes, so we're not going to take up the entire hour, but we will have plenty of time at the end to answer any questions that you have. If we don't get to a question, we'll be following up via email, so just stay tuned for that. So with no further ado, I will hand this over to Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Michelle. Thank you very much for setting this all up, and it's a pleasure to be here to talk to you all today. My name is Chris Maddie. I'm the founder of Versium, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Versium here in a moment, but just my background, I've been involved with email, identity, data technology around how do you identify a person for, quite a while now, probably 2 decades going back to when we really pioneered bringing the white and yellow pages online for the first time at a company called InfoSpace. So a lot of experience dealing with identity, how do you find a person, and now we're doing some interesting things in the marketing world around that. And I'm excited to be here with Brian. Brian, I'll turn it over to you with Zero Bounce and look forward to presenting to the folks here today with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. And thank you to the whole Versium team, and appreciate us being able to collaborate on this. So I'm Brian Minnick. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Zero Bounce. My background and experience is purely around technology and marketing. So I have about 15 years experience in those fields. And today with Zero Bounce, been there for about 4 years and oversee all of our support and sales team. And so we've been featured heavily, and thankfully our team has gotten us into tons of publications around entrepreneur, money.com, things like this around helping people kind of with their deliverability. And so nice to meet everyone. I'm very excited to be here, and just a little bit more background on Zero Bounce. So we're an email validation platform, and we focus on deliverability. And so with that, we help customers with data hygiene and getting rid of bad email addresses that might be in their database, or removing that bad data upon collection. So we have a whole suite of tools that help do that. And as far as some of the background on Zero Bounce as well, we've been on the Inc. 5000 5 times. We have validated over 13 billion emails, and we're coming up close to 200,000 customers now using our platform in every single country of the world, and we operate 24/7. So the whole kind of concept with Zero Bounce is, if you hit send, you can do that with confidence, knowing that your emails are reaching people's inboxes and you're talking to real people and not bots or toxic or kind of bad email addresses. And so some of the partnership that we have with Versium today, and it's, again, really exciting for us. We're very complementing businesses, and Versium's been a great partner for us when we have people that have bad emails on their list and they're looking for some replacement data. We go ahead and pass them over to Versium to see if they can help with that. So with that, Chris, let's hear a little bit more about you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, Versium, we're a technology company. We operate an industry-leading identity resolution platform. And what that really means is we can effectively identify people through multiple different contact points. That identity technology allows us to pull lots and lots of data together about people, and most importantly, enrich our customers' first-party data with that data. And that data can be both identity data, meaning how do you reach or identify a person, which is emails, addresses, phone numbers, things of that nature. So we can enrich our customers' first-party data with additional contact points, but also rich insights and characteristics about those people, demographics and firmographics and things of this nature. So it's a great partnership with Zero Bounce because they find a lot of bad emails and really help their clients do the most effective job in reaching their customers. And when those customers do have bad emails or want additional contact points, that's where we come in and we're able to deliver that value. So it's a great partnership, and excited to talk more about really the power of email. And I think we come about this from a couple different perspectives, beyond just email delivery to many, many other things you can do that we're going to talk about today. And as far as agenda is concerned, we're going to speak about the identity graph and email's role in that identity graph, the shift of focus with all the things that are happening in the market to where companies are really putting a lot of energy on their first party data and maximizing its value. And particularly email and as an identity component and what type of data enrichment you can get from other data resources out there, both contact points and insights, and then how does email really unlock digital advertising? So there's so much you can do in marketing with starting with an email. When we think of the identity graph, it's really what's powered the growth in digital marketing. And that is, how do you effectively target people? How do you put the right creatives in front of them? And how do you get value from your marketing activity? And that's what's really growing this industry. And for folks that are in it, we all know it's a very big industry and growing to very large size, 84 billion marketing software in 2023. Companies that are data driven look for external sources of data to complement what they have. And the number of companies businesses are working with to improve the quality of their data is growing. And this just highlights the number of organizations that will ultimately feed some complementary data assets to a company. When we think about the identity graph, and email is really one of the key, if not most important aspects of the identity graph. And an identity graph is all of the different contact points or touch points that a marketer could utilize to reach their target audience. It might be social platforms, i.e. social profiles. It might be geo-targeting because we're seeing where people are going through and determining intent. It might be physical address, mobile device, and then email. Email is really key because it's associated as a unique identifier to a person across this full spectrum of different touch points. And that email can be a business email or a personal email. And people might have multiple emails. They might have an email they receive most of their correspondences with, i.e. email message delivery. They might have 2 or 3 other emails, one that they log into Apple, another one that they log into LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. So tying this all together is really powerful and important as a marketer wants to do its best job to reach these people across different touch points. When we think about the history, and it's really interesting, you know, when the internet first evolved, it was all content based, right? People would put content about fishing up or trucks up, and then ads for associated would work for that. And then as gated content started arriving and people started registering all over the place online, these websites were able to capture identity data, i.e. an email address. And by associating that email address to a cookie, now you had that identity mapped to browsing activity. And that browsing activity is what generates intent and targeting for marketers. If you're browsing a Ford website, you're probably looking for a car. And if you've logged into the Ford website and if there's an email there, that email can then be associated with a cookie, and then all the other traffic and things you do as you're browsing can be mapped back to that activity. You can improve the number of impressions for Ford trucks. So it really powered a lot of great things in the marketing world when identity data started getting mapped to browsing activity. The next step is being able to take that identity data and now associate it to offline characteristics like demographics, you know, age, gender, kids in the household, own versus rent. These are characteristics that are known about a person that can then be used to ideally create targets and intent and desires, right? A person who has a certain profile of interest might like different things. And so by taking that identity data, mapping it to this offline data of demographics, financial, assets owned, marketers could now say, hey, I want to target someone who owns a house versus renting differently. And so the ability to enhance digital advertising by the identity data and then the different characteristics associated with those identities is really what's powered great things in marketing in terms of ROI and spend and things of that nature. So email has been key over the last, 2 decades as this has evolved to unlock all of this great targeting and digital advertising. But there's a problem, and I think as you know, we work with Zero Bounce here. One of the things they do is solve problems when it comes to email data. And I think, Brian, I'll let you speak a little bit about some of the things you see and the problems when it comes to what kind of bad data is out there when we talk about identity data.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, whether you're B2B or B2C, it does not matter. And you're going to have churn in your database or your emails. especially in B2B. So we're seeing heavy churn in B2B email addresses. And so some of the things that you can do, like the form that Maddie showed before, that Chris showed before, it had the C Maddie in it. And if there's typos in there or things of that nature, Zero Bounce can help kind of correct those in real time. And so we have some really good use cases where people are collecting the email address and it might be bad, and we're actually representing the proper one, one that would have validity behind it and would be a valid email address. So it's just really important. You know, for anyone that's been in this space long enough, you're gonna get all these garbage emails, and it's just part of the internet, right? And so we have bots, we have spam traps, we have toxic email addresses, we have you know, people that have many email addresses. There's things called catch-alls where everything kind of goes to one, funnels into one space. And so the whole point of it is to be aware and to use tools to filter out the ones that are really not real people, and use that to your advantage to make sure you're targeting things properly. So even if you look at, you know, giant Procter and Gamble cut $200 million in digital ads in 2017 after noticing a lot of that spend was going to wrong people or not even real people. And this is really a lot of, it could be a big problem, and it can be a huge suck to your budget on marketing. So you really want to make sure that the contacts you have are good. You know, bots and things of this nature will just absolutely flood your sign up forms. And then you're taking that data and you're probably storing it in a CRM, or you're moving it some other places, and you're leaving this trail of really bad data the whole way along, and you have to manage all of that. And so, you know, a company like Zero Bounce, and what we do is we help get rid of that stuff for you, so you're targeting the right people. So yes, you absolutely want to make sure you are catching these kind of fake emails and either presenting a correction or maybe blocking it altogether. We see a lot of this also on like discounts, sign up forms, those type of things, gated content where people are trying to just get past the gate. So
yeah. It's the bad emails. Obviously, there's an expense, there's a marketing inefficiency when you're doing email marketing, but in the digital world, you know, I read somewhere where, you know, 30 to 40% of traffic can be bot traffic, and people are spending against those impressions, and it's not generating any benefit. So it's really key to improve and know your marketing to a human and fix that email data. As we think of what's happening macro level in the industry, there's been a shift towards this focus on first party data, heavily because the Google cookies, not you know, the cookies going away. And so it used to be those cookies were mapped to email, which were mapped to offline data. Now you can create a segment of people, different characteristics, and target those people. Well, now big enterprises are putting a shift back into their own data and adding and enriching their own data. First, fixing it, making sure it's high quality, making sure you're getting rid of the bad bot data, the synthetic identities, normalizing it, you know, fixing the errors that during entry and validation, and ultimately doing the enrichment to improve that first party data versus relying on these external segments for their digital marketing. So there's a big shift going on, which really makes it so important to work with companies like Zero Bounce to make sure that you first fix your data, then you enrich it to optimize your marketing. And I know you guys do a lot of things to help improve email data. So I'll let you maybe speak to some of those things, Brian.
yeah, absolutely. So you know, some of the things that are very important is to validate every single email address on your list, and to do this often. So even once is not enough. So we are a B2B business. We sell mainly to businesses who are, you know, looking for hygiene or whatever it might be. In our own platform, we're seeing 30% churn in our own emails, people signing up on our platform. And mainly those are business emails. So, you know, we are as proactive as you'll get, and we're still seeing this type of churn. So it's really important that you take a look at these, you know, verify them in real time when they sign up, when you submit them, when you import, whatever it might be, and remove all of the bad ones in the first place. Build a better database. You know, it's your holy grail when you talk about marketing. It's your centerpiece. It's your unique identifier. You know, you really want to make sure that you have a really good kind of high quality database. And you might ask, well, why? What does it matter? Why can't I have 1 million contacts and 200,000 be bad? Who cares? Well, the senders care when you go out to actually put that message out in front of people, whether you're trying to do, you know, in particular email marketing. Deliverability is getting into the inbox, not delivered, delivered means nothing. Delivered means somebody sent a button, or sent the message and it left. That has no value. What has the value is when it gets into inbox. And so if you are sending to a bunch of bad email addresses, you will most likely end up in a spam folder based on bounces and things of that nature. So you want to remove all of that stuff. And also, there's some pieces where you can target your audiences more specifically and therefore boost engagement. So, if you're selling clothes and you can segment men and women and target that message to, hey, men, here's the outfits for you, women, here's the outfits for you, the chance of you getting higher engagement is obviously much, much higher. Based on that, your inbox rate will continue to improve. People, the email boxes love engagement because they think that's a message people wanted. And so when people just skip through you, mark you as spam, don't see you, your reputation suffers heavily from it. So it's a really kind of important piece that maybe not everyone's aware of.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, I'm sure you've got customers where they've been shut down, or they can be shut down by the ISP. If they say, hey, this is someone who's spamming, no longer can you receive messages from this group, and it could be really damaging to a marketer.
Yeah, and Chris, an interesting thing, there's no company that is safe from this. That is also what I've learned in our business. Even the biggest companies in the world, the largest organizations that you think are bulletproof and are untouchable, they get penalized here heavily as well. So if the big guys have to do it, for sure, we all have to do this.
That's right. And I think once when we look at what we do in the world of data enrichment, meaning we're going to provide additional data assets and resources so that the marketer can have more contact points or more insights, the first thing you have to do is start with good data. And so cleaning it and doing all the things that Zero Bounce does is so important. And then we're able to come in and add more data. And when we think about identity-powered data enrichment, that's really saying, okay, we see this person, what more do we know about them? What additional contacts can we provide so that the marketer can effectively reach them? Extending the reach of first-party data, insights for different segmenting, different messaging. Brian mentioned you might want to message differently from a male versus a female, but there might be a whole bunch of other characteristics beyond gender you can also tune your messaging to. Not only that, different channels use data differently, right? Social channels use email, address, and phone number and other things. Different channels use data differently. So the more data you have, the better chance you have of getting your message in front of those people. And if you have that data, it also helps with attribution tracking, because if you constructed your own digital audience from your own first party data and then activate it out in the digital world, and these people come back to visit your site because it was your audience to begin with, you can start doing some really powerful things in terms of attribution tracking to see that that message is actually working and that spend is actually performing because you know who you're spending to. You actually know the exact people you're marketing to versus the old way of going out in the ad tech ecosystem and using an external segment. So it's really, really powerful. When we think about contact data enrichment, what we think about is adding additional emails. But it's not just an email. We can add from an email, we can add address, phone number, mobile IDs. These are additional contact points that can be used out in the digital ecosystem. And when we think about the B2B emails, that's a really powerful thing, because the entire ad tech ecosystem, as I'll get to in a moment, was designed to market to consumers. So if you've got a list of business people you want to market to on Facebook or Google, and you upload that list of folks into their platform to target them, you're going to have a real challenge, because most of those profiles are not mapped to a business email. They're mapped to the person's personal email. So we'll get into how we can help with that in a moment here. But I know, Brian, you guys do a bunch of things yourselves in terms of just making an email more powerful through data enrichment.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, what you guys do is really, it's amazing, right? It allows you to get full circle on a person, and it's not just their email address or business email address. It's really powerful stuff. I really recommend people are taking a look at details of what you guys are doing. But some of the things that we're able to do, we don't actually provide data outbound, so all data has to come into us, and we take it and clean it and sanitize and enrich it where we can. And so, there's things that we're able to do based on the email address. Usually we can find name. We can take some very educated guesses based on names to come up with gender. Location might be good if you're trying to segment. These are just a few things that we do. We also can allow you to segment free email accounts versus business emails. A lot of people only want registrations from business emails. as well as the age of it. So we help with some fraud prevention tools if that's maybe issues you're having as well. But there's lots of really good things you can get with just a single email address. And between the two of us, what you can come out with that is it's really incredible.
Yeah, moving to some of those incredible things, we get into sort of insights. So first step is, okay, you've got an email. It's now clean and validated. It's real. It's a real person. Oh, it's not. Let's find a better one. Let's find additional ones. This is all. Let's find additional contact ones. That's all contact data. But now we can get into sort of the insights data. And this is in the B2C world or the consumer world, demographics. So it's not just age and gender. There's literally 400 additional attributes we can associate to an identity. And these are things like types of cars people drive and activities and interests and these types of things that allow further segmenting even more granularly for different creatives or different segmentations and different understanding of who your customer is. Financial details, income level, right? Someone who has a higher net worth might want to receive a different offer than someone who has different characteristics. Owning a home versus renting has different characteristics. I mentioned activities and interests. When we get away from the consumer world, which actually works in B2B marketing, because even if you're a B2B marketer and you're marketing whatever product, service, software you might have, understanding the human or who the person is really important towards getting engagement. But not only the human aspect, but now the firmographic details, right? Job title, function, company revenue, what industry. These are all characteristics that can be associated to a set of data through our data enrichment when it comes to insights beyond just the contact data. When we think about, we've been talking about digital advertising, right? So you can do an email marketing campaign, you can do phone outbound calling with BDR reps, but if you can build awareness out in the digital ecosystem of brand and teach your audience through digital advertising engagement, that helps accelerate all activities when it comes to ROI for marketing. In the digital world, there is a lot of different things that can be done, right? In Facebook accepts up to 3 emails. So you might have one email because you might have one email on a person. So you get an aggregate of 100,000 emails, but you got one email per person. Well, if you want to target them on Facebook, maybe they don't use that particular email on Facebook. Facebook accepts 3 emails to unlock an audience, right? Google accepts 8 emails. So the more contact points you have, and these might be emails that don't even receive messages, but they're used for login. So these companies all accept multiple contact points, not just email, they also accept address, phone, and other things. And that's how we're able to unlock the impressions out in the digital ecosystem through these different contact points that are added to an existing list. In the B2B world, it's a real challenge, however. And the reason for that is that most of these ad tech ecosystems, whether it's Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, broader digital, even LinkedIn, even though it's a B2B social networking site, 75% of those profiles are actually mapped to the person's personal email address, not their business email. Meaning, the profile I log in with is cdmatty@yahoo, not cmatty@Versium. Facebook, it's even worse. So what ends up happening is if you've got a list of business email addresses that you want to target because you've been gathering these at your website, and now you want to put a digital campaign up on Facebook, and you upload these 100,000 business emails onto Facebook, which they allow you to do to be able to target those specific people, Facebook's only able to find 11% of those, i.e. 11% match rate to the profiles, because most of the profiles are not mapped to a business email. The good news is, and this is a real game changer for B2B marketers that are using identity data to target their audiences in the digital ecosystem, is that you can take what's called a B2B to C graph, which is the business email mapped to additional contact points. So you can take 1,000 business emails, and we'll generally be able to add upwards of 5,000 to 7,000 additional contact points for those same 1,000 people. What we mean is additional emails, phone number, addresses. It's all encrypted, so there's no PII transfer, and it's all formatted for these different platforms. So not only that, you can then do some enrichment with insights data and create microsegments and now activate. And the difference is game changing. So where you were able to only get 11% match rate or be able to put impressions or ads in front of 11% of that business audience with that list unenriched, After you add all these additional contact points, it literally goes up to 85, 90%. So it unlocks the ability across the spectrum of ad ecosystem to target B2 business audiences like never before. Facebook, 11 to 90%. LinkedIn's a little better. And these improved match rates are actually pretty conservative. I've seen it 90 to 100%. And it's really helping the B2B marketer unlock digital advertising like never before. And it's not just the reach that's important. And this highlights what is the true underlying marketing ROI. So you'll see in this example here, the first red arrow, by doing a B2B to C mapping and taking those business emails and enriching them with all these additional contact points before you onboard into the different ad tech systems, you can take the match rate from 35%. This is on Google. The right column is before enrichment, the left is after. We took the match rate from 35% to nearly 100%. But what does that really mean? Take a look down below. We helped drive 5 times the number of impressions. So while the match rate maybe only went up 3 times, the amount of impressions the advertiser was able to unlock towards their target audience went up 5 times, from 43,000 to nearly 200,000 impressions. So that shows you how we're unlocking the digital advertising opportunity. But most importantly is not the impressions, but the performance. You went from 53 clicks, and this is a relatively small test, to literally 524 clicks, which means 10 times the amount of traffic being generated from the digital spend than what was achieved without that enrichment. And that is the true benefit when we talk about taking identity mapping, extending it with additional identity, and being able to then more effectively reach out to the digital system. And from a B2B marketer's perspective, it is just really a game-changing situation. So I think we've covered a lot, Brian. I mean, there's cleansing of email, there's enriching with all kinds of data. And I think, sort of the point here is that there's just so much that can be done in the marketing world with just starting it with just an email.
Yeah, and Chris, when you were talking about all the different, channels that you start to open up and create the match rates, I mean, depending upon your business, most of you will know this might take 3 times, different touch points to convert someone. And I've seen them up, 10, 20, depending upon your product, where you got to just you got to get your brand in front of these people, and you got to hit them from a lot of different angles, right before bed, when they first wake up, as they're kind of working through the day. And so the more and more you're getting your brand in front of these guys, for sure, your increased conversion and performance is going to happen as well.
Yeah, we've seen, you've got marketing automation where you're sending out emails from multiple touch points. You've got BDR reps that are doing outbound calling to set up appointments for demos and things of this nature, and for a SaaS software product, for example. What we've seen when you combine these activities, where you've got top of funnel digital ad awareness building, where you're putting content, informative content that you're putting out in the digital ecosystem, whether it's Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, in concert with these other activities, both email marketing and direct outbound calling, we've seen that if you do all these things in a synchronized fashion with the most effectivity and reach. One example, we've seen the cost of demo go from $515 per setup demo down to $330. And that's the true marketing ROI by synchronizing all this together. But it all kind of starts with that identity, that email. Now you got this pool of people. Now what can you do with it? Well, let's make this data better. Now let's enrich and put all these additional contact points to extend the reach. Now let's add additional insights data so we can do really powerful segmenting. And we're going to do all this in-house within our own first-party data. And now when we activate, we know we're targeting real people with the right message. And that's what's driving this ROI benefit. And really, it's the basis for our partnership, because you said it early on, hundreds of thousands of customers, billions and billions of emails. And I'm sure, you've seen about everything that's bad out there. And we love to come in and then, provide additional value by new contact points, new insights, and so on.
Yeah, for sure. And, for anyone who's maybe doing biz dev and you're struggling with it, and you're just going the traditional route, grabbing emails and sending, I really highly recommend you take a look at both of these tools. They're really powerful, and really it's a key to it that if you know, but if you don't, that's part of the education part that we like to share with everyone. It's just really important, and it's effective and cost effective.
And when we go from the handoff here, when we work with Zero Bounce, when we come into play, is sort of, okay, now we got this email data really fixed. What are all the different things you can do? Whether it's business data tools, i.e. online audience extension to reach those people, go from 11% to 80% on Facebook, whether it's account-based marketing. Now you've got a list of emails, business emails. You got 1 or 2 business emails, let's say, at a particular company. Well, if you want to do account-based marketing, what we were able to do is find a bunch of additional emails for that same business. Now you've got not just 2 people, you might have 200 people that you can market to at that target account. That is account-based marketing. You're now able to do brand building across the buying committee while maybe the user or the decision maker is getting communicated via email. You're supporting the awareness of your brand within the organization. We could take a list of emails and do lookalike modeling, where we say, let's find more contacts of companies that are very similar to your best customers. So we'll take in a list of, maybe your best 1,000 customers, and we got AI engine that will associate all this data, firmographics, demographics, and say, hey, let's construct a new audience that looks most like your best customers and activate it that way. Again, this all starts with, that input of an email address, right, as an identity. List insights and firmographic depend is really these characteristics we can associate about the business. And then some other things we can do with taking a consumer email and finding the business email. That's our C2B append. So if someone fills out a form on a B2B website, but instead of giving the C-Maddie at Versium, they put in CD-Maddie at Yahoo. Well, we can find the business email associated to the consumer email. So these are all the type of rich insights, things we can do in the B2B world and on consumer demographics, same online audience extension, additional contact points. You might have to start with an email, but what about having an address? What about a phone number? We can provide these additional contact points. And that's why this is such a great partnership. We love working with Zero Bounce. Not only do we have a partnership to work collectively with our mutual customers, we use Zero Bounce extensively whenever we have a customer that comes in, and before we send additional data out, additional emails, we'll run through Zero Bounce, not as a brand customer, but on behalf of our customers as well. And we send a lot of emails there for them to fix. Well, that went pretty quick, Brian. I think we covered a lot of ground. Hopefully we got some questions and we've spawned some interesting thoughts and ideas. And Michelle, I guess this is where you get to come back in, and we'll see what questions we're going to answer for the audience.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Brian. That was great. I definitely learned a thing or two as well. So I'm going to just jump right into some questions. We've had quite a few come in, some through the chat, some through the Q&A. If there are any outstanding, feel free to jump in and ask right now, but I'm just going to go through with some things that we've got. So to start out, we do have a question about international data, one specific to Puerto Rico, but Chris, can you speak to how Versium handles international data?
Yeah, I suspect Brian will have a deeper answer on what they do internationally. From our perspective, we have a lot of international data, a lot of international identity data. We primarily focus domestically right now, but we're exploring different avenues to do things internationally based upon the data we have. But there's some different regulations, GDPR, things of that nature that put a lot more controls in the transfer of third-party data that we're careful with. So primarily we're domestic. But for anybody that is interested in international additional contact points, I do welcome you drop my email down, because I get that question all the time. And we do have a lot of international data, and we are doing some projects to explore turning that back on. And so love to hear from people in that regard. But I know, Brian, you have less limitations in probably what you guys do internationally. So
yeah, so we're able to validate any email in any part of the world, with the one caveat of characters in the Asian markets. And so Puerto Rico would be no issue. But for us, the nice part is email. And so when we go do our job, just in case anyone who's not clear what we do, we actually go and contact that mailbox and contact the mail server, establish a connection, validate to see if that recipient actually exists, and then we close the connection. That's just one of many ways we do it, but that's the very well-known way to do it. And so for us, it does not matter where that person is. And for our infrastructure, we actually will geolocate and not attack, but go towards the mail server that has the closest point for us So it will give us the best results. So if we're going to try to validate Puerto Rican email addresses from servers that are in Puerto Rico, we'll actually probably start that connection very close to there. So for us, it's no problem.
Great, thank you guys. Then we have a question here. Is an email address required for enrichment?
From our perspective, it's not. I mean, it's a primary identity element that we do key off of. But from our platform's perspective, we can take as an input for data enrichment an address, first name, last name, and an address, just an address, which would be a household level, phone numbers, things of that nature. So we can take in there's about 12 different identity elements we can take in that we can use to then do data enrichment. So we're not just limited to email. So there's a lot of things we can do with other data as well.
Got it. Thanks, Chris. Question here, besides invalid, are there any types of bad emails?
Yeah, this is a good one for me. So there's kind of some high level classifications. There's good email addresses, there's bad ones, and then there's gray. And so in the gray area, it depends upon some of your business. So as an example, you might be a charity and you might be collecting emails as part of your charity organization, or you get donations. There might be some emails that you're getting maybe from litigation domains, or there might be some emails that are coming from just various channels that maybe as a B2B you might not want. So there's a couple different pieces. One, there's things called spam traps. These are ones where they're terrible. What they're created and put out on the internet for you to basically purchase a list, find it, send to it, and you get automatically blacklisted. So that's a valid email address. If you send it mail, it's going to accept the mail. But the problem is once you send it, you have just absolutely tarnished everything that you've ever done for your reputation, and you will be blacklisted on that domain or the mail server in general. So there is more than just invalid. There's also kind of some of these toxic or disposables. That's another one that's really popular. I like to call them burner emails. So they last anywhere from 10, 15 minutes to 24 hours. They usually don't seem to last longer than that. But I can just go to a website, spin one up in literally 1 second. As soon as I hit the page, I have a fake email address. I can receive email. I can click. I can get past your gate in seconds. And so those are also detectable. And so depending upon how you might want it for some reason, I wouldn't. But if you're simply looking to gate something, and then they get past these gates with these bad emails, I mean, your whole effort was kind of tarnished. So
the nefarious actors are using synthetic identities. People are trying to perpetrate fraud. It's not just invalid. It's the people who are trying to pull scams and all the different terrible things that happen on the internet. Oftentimes they're using a bogus email, synthetic identity to look like a person and to do the things that they do. So it's there's a lot of goodness in the internet, and then there's a few things that you got to fix.
Great answers, guys. What are some best practices for identity mapping? Chris, can you speak to that briefly?
Best practices. I mean, so the whole key of identity mapping means, can we find additional contact points? And so the first step is fix your data, because there's no point in trying to find additional contact points for a bad email or a not valid person. So step one is fixing your data. And that's like working with companies like Zero Bounce. There's lots of things you can do with your own internal data sets, but once garbage in, garbage out, right? If you're trying to get additional contact points and you don't have good data, your ability to achieve that's going to be less. So the first step is get that data fixed. Then once you add additional contact points, it's really about which channel is the best avenue for you. Is it email marketing? Is it direct mail? Is it digital? All of these are the things, the different channels that could be utilized through contact enrichment and identity management. And in the digital world, in the B2B world, it's a must to have additional contact points. It just doesn't even work actually without you can see 10% on Facebook. So those are some of the most important things.
Great, thank you, Chris. Another one for you here. Does Versium have the capability to take a list of LinkedIn contacts and determine their business email address?
We can take LinkedIn profile in. That's a public identity data. It's out there. You know, you just got to go on a LinkedIn profile. So anything that's a public domain data set is fair game in that regard. And we can take a LinkedIn profile and not just find a business email, but we can find additional contact points. So think of it as a key to the identity graph. So yes, you can find a business email some of the time. You can find additional contact points, consumer emails, address, phone, all of these things that can be used to unlock with digital advertising. Or you can take it and map it to insights as well, maybe demographics, firmographics, things of that nature. So the key thing here is that is an input we can utilize to unlock all the things we've talked about today.
Great, thank you, Chris. Let's see, Brian, this might be a good one for you. Could you add some insights to false opens or clicks within reporting?
Can zero bounce do that? No. However, I think we've all been hit with the recent challenge of an open. What does it even mean anymore? To me, it's now a useless stat. We don't get into that side of it. So I don't know. Chris, do you have anything there that works for you guys?
Can you just restate the question again, Michelle? I want to make sure.
So this has to do with reporting, the reporting side of email. They're asking for some insights into any false opens or clicks in reporting, if there's a way to identify that. I don't think these products specifically work on the reporting side of things, but if there's any insight you could give to that.
Yeah, I think that's really going to be in the email sending out and opening versus what we do. So we're not going to really be able to provide a whole lot of insight in that.
The only thing I might just chime in to maybe help or guide here a little bit is, you know, opens and clicks they're great, they're cute, they're everything people want. It's the stat that the guy's presenting to the management team when they did the campaign or whatever it is. But you got to look at the you got to take it a step further and go into what's the actual performance and what was the outcome, right? And so what we've seen also is, you know, a lot of these bot emails, just so you guys are aware, if you send to them, they will open and they can click. And so when you talk about false, I would say you got to look at the whole overarching campaign and what was your outcome of it. And if you're getting, you know, thousands of clicks and zero conversions, you know, my flag would pop up, right, and say, all right, what happened here? So I would go through, check the emails, make sure they're good, start segmenting, see if you kind of can find something there. But you know, it's a challenging kind of problem. But focus on for me, I would focus on the end goal and the outcome, and focus on increasing those numbers. Because to me, clicks and opens, they're becoming more and more, you know, it's not a very telling story anymore with those.
It's the same thing in the digital advertising. When we say opens and clicks, open an email, click on the content, and yes, completely agree with you. There are bots that will follow through and do that. Same thing happens in the digital ad ecosystem. There's not really an open. You're not opening a mail, but you're seeing a digital ad and you're clicking on the message because there's some call to action. Now, who you really want is someone who read that call to action, who's intrigued, wants to learn more because they're interested in the topic. They click, and now what do? They engage with multiple pages on a website because they're learning and they're traveling through the journey. But we see the same type of things from a bot perspective out in the world, where they click on an ad, they land on the page, and then they just go away. And it may be a person that said, "Oh, I didn't mean to," or "I'm not interested." But we see a lot of bot traffic out there, and it's the same impact as it is in email opens and clicks. There's just no open, there's just clicks, and they're bad clicks. And so I think even in the digital ecosystem world, it comes down to what is the ROI and how do you make sure that you're seeing what does a person do after they enter your website? What pages do they visit? And you'll be able to see trends of, you know, real interested parties are looking at certain things. And now you can start doing some things with, you know, pulling that audience out of your own environment and reinforcing messaging and putting the right people there. Yeah.
Great. Okay, probably another one here for Chris. I'm going to ask two at once in a way. So how often does Versium refresh their data? And then after that, what is the enrichment percentage based on the identity points that we match on?
That's an interesting one. So let me take the first one and
Yep.
I'll do my best to understand the second one. So the data we're able to associate with our identity engine, and there's all kinds of it. We're pulling data in all the time. And we're getting data from many different sources, public sources. There's data aggregators, in the auto industry, right? When a person goes into Jiffy Lube, their data is, they're getting authorized rights by the consumer to use it and distribute it and so on. So we're getting data from many, many sources. Sometimes we're getting on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. So we are constantly refreshing the data that we're able to then append and associate to our customers' data. And what's most interesting is our identity engine does that mapping in real time and runtime. And we don't just have one pre-built master data set. We have a bunch of independent databases that are being refreshed at different rates. And we pull it all together in real time. So that means we're always grabbing the most freshest data. And so that's it's a little bit of insight into some of the things we're doing in terms of refreshing the underlying data that we're able to deliver to our customers. Now, what you said, I think the next question was what percent of data is refreshed? Was that the question?
Is enriched. So if somebody brings first party data, and the person that asked this question, if you have any clarifying remarks,
I think I can run with that.
Yep.
I got it. So it all depends on what data is being enriched. And what the input is. And this is why we work with Brian and his team, is that a lot of times we see bad input data. Our match rate, the percentage of time we'll be able to return. So if you got 100 records in, just to use it as a nominal number, well, and you want to get demographics on all 100 people, or 1,000 or a million, but 100 people. Well, generally, if it's really good data, we'll be able to find about 70, 75, maybe 80% of those folks in our data set and be able to do the enrichment. If it's good input data, I've seen it as high as 90 plus, where it's really high quality, known individuals. But if it's 50% bad data, maybe it's a bad email, wasn't formatted, they didn't hit shift to, it wasn't bad data input. Well, then we're never going to match on that 50% to begin with, right? So it really matters on the quality of the input data. And that's why fixing that first party data is so important. Now that's demographic data. If we're trying to go from a LinkedIn profile to a business email, there was an earlier question there, that's not happening at 50%. That's probably going to be 20 to 30% because that's a challenging problem. So the match rate and the append rate, the enrichment rate to the question can vary all over the place from 80 to 70 to 80. Anything above that is spectacular, maybe down to 15 to 20. And again, it depends on the quality of the input data and which data and how challenging it is to find the underlying data. Again, demographics, let's talk about that for a second. While we have 400 added columns, meaning additional attributes we can associate, the fill rate on each column may be different. We have one that's a category of fishing and hunting interest. Well, there may only be 7% of the population that really, and I don't know the percentage, but if there's only 7% that have that interest, well, then you're only have 7% possibility, even at 100% match rate. So it's a tricky question. It's an important one. We generally will let people test and trial our system out to make sure they're getting enough data back, because it can vary. It really does vary based upon the type of data the person's interested in.
Great. Thank you, Chris. All right. So one for Brian here, I would say. This person says they totally agree with you on delivery to inbox versus a straight delivered email, but what recommendations would you have for the in-between data gap? So they know they're not blacklisted because they have a monitor on, but their inbox placement test looks good, but they're still struggling with deliverability.
Yeah, so this is, it's a really challenging problem. So there's a few things. So I know you mentioned you're not on a blacklist, but just to confirm, blacklist can be monitored either through domain, it should be both, your domain and your IP address that you're sending from. So you could be on a shared mail server, just for example, I don't know the exact situation here, but if you're on a shared mail server and those guys are blasting spam content, the IP address will actually have a tarnished reputation as well. And it will impact you directly, even though you're not directly being the one, that's causing that damage. Secondly, I know you say you're doing inbox placement tests. Just to confirm, Zero Bounce offers this as well, and it's actually a completely free service that you can try, and blacklist monitoring, where we would provide a bunch of seed accounts that you can send your email campaigns to, and we'll let you know if it inboxed or went to spam or was not delivered altogether. So it's a really good, easy way to quickly check, what provider might be blocking you. That's very important. And then third, there's another piece which you didn't mention here, which might be a very good piece for you, Beth, is and we have it, it's a mail server configuration tester. And this is a highly technical analysis of your configuration of your mail server. And what I mean by that is we're going in, we're checking DNS, we're checking your DKIM records, your DMARC, all of the configuration that is set up on your sending server to make sure that when you're sending mail, the receivers actually can confirm that that's your email address and it's your platform and your message getting out there. So there's a lot of checks and balances that are behind the scenes. And if you didn't set all this up, or you just kind of skipped through this section where you hook your domain and do a lot of other records as part of it in your DNS, you might be missing this crucial piece, and our tester would be able to actually identify that for you. So I would highly recommend those three. So enhance your blacklist, making sure you're doing domain and IP, check multiple inbox placement tests, use different providers. We have ones on AOL, Gmail, Hotmail, all of the big ones, Proofpoint, all of that. And then also check to make sure the configuration of your mail server is good. And if it's not, fix it. It's a really important piece, but that's a really great question. And what a lot of people are struggling with is exactly the same issue you have.
Great, thank you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a couple questions around how do we do this? How do we use Zero Bounce? How do we use Versium? How do we use them together? You guys want to kind of tag team that one and speak to that?
Sure, I'll take a first stab at it. Like I always like to say is, fix your data first, and then we can come in and make it way more powerful. So if you've got a lot of CRM data or whatever the source of your contact data is, running it through Zero Bounce as a first step to make sure you've got good email. We had a customer come to us, they were a major retailer, and they said, we've got 50 million members. We've only got, 17 million emails, and we've been gathering them for, 20 years. Well, there's probably a lot of bad data in there. And, our recommendation is let's validate it first. Let's bring Brian and team in. And then now let's see what else we can give you. Let's give you some additional contact points. Maybe you want more emails for the same household. You just want to market to all shoppers, and maybe you want demographics. And so after that first step of cleansing, now we come in and for all the bad emails that Zero Bounce finds, we can find alternative ones for a very healthy percentage of those, and then start providing additional contacts and put additional insights. And that's just a natural flow to being more accurate in your data-driven marketing. Brian, anything you would add to that?
I think you hit it pretty well, but so my hardest comment to get out to people is you have to actually understand that less is better. And so having less but high quality data is much better than having this huge set of data that really doesn't have all the value behind it. We've been working with Versium for a very long time, and I'm very confident in the data that they're providing out there. But to be honest with you, it's not, even if you got it, you still have to do that maintaining process. So while the data might be delivered to you clean, in 6 months from now, that same statement is not necessarily true, and that's not a fault of Versium. That's just the nature of the beast
it
here.
erodes, yes.
And you have to come back and turn around and scan it through again. I also would say to sorry, just because I see a couple questions around like how do I use Zero Bounce? Is there additional cost? Anyone can create a free account on zerobounce.net. We have 100 free email validations that's free every single month that you can do. For general idea of cost, to do 2,000 validations, that's our smallest package, that costs $16. If you have 1 million records, that's about $2,250. And there's no one too big and no one too small to use Zero Bounce. And our team is really trained on this. They're happy to help you. They will guide you through no matter what you choose, even if you go with a free package. It's no problem for us. We are very big in the education and helping. That's our goal. And so, you got to get rid of some of this stuff. I've seen it also, Chris, where we have companies that have been collecting data for 20 years and they're like, no, it's good. We collected it. And I'm like, okay, did you have a double opt-in process? No. Did you ever validate the data? No. Okay. So I'll tell you right now, I'm going to cut your database in half, but I'm going to save you money because you're paying for all this storage. You're paying to move this to all the different systems. So typically for zero bounce, it's an immediate ROI on especially if you have a large data set, because you're storing all this information and most likely paying for that storage somewhere. So we're happy to help. There's lots of resources, and our live chat team are 24/7, real people, happy to help.
Yeah, and I would just say for those people that come directly to us, if we're sending out an email for a digital ad mapping, we don't validate it because it's not necessary. It's not receiving a message. But for anybody that is gathering additional contact points, emails for email messaging and delivery, we are hitting zero bounce behind the scenes before we deliver those out to make sure we're giving a good email. So even if you are just going direct to Versium to get a Contact Append Plus service and you're wanting additional emails behind, people don't necessarily know, but behind the scenes, we are doing the validation, and we are doing it through our partnership with Zero Bounce. So you're getting that benefit if you go direct to us versus starting with them also. So it's why we're here today.
Awesome. All right, I think there was a couple more questions, but we're nearing the end of time here. So anything that we did not get to, we will be following up via email. A recording of this entire webinar will also be sent to you. So look out for that. And if there are any additional questions, reach out to Brian or Chris directly, not a problem at all, or to our sales team, or even to me if you want, and we'll get to any questions that you have. So all that contact information is right here on your screen, and we'll be following up via email. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. This has been a blast, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.